So very good evening to all of you. On behalf of the ET Brand Equity and Clever Tab, I extend a warm welcome to all of you to the Big Leap Rise with Retention Roadshow, the Delhi chapter. We should have an applause for every word which has been written. It's a cue down script, but I think we should clap for the Big Leap once again. And for people saying इतनी तालियां क्यों बजा रहे हैं, तालियों से दिल तेज, दिमाग तंदुरुस्त, आंखों की रोशनी ठीक होती है. We should all have the yoga thing also. I'm Madhukar, your host for the evening. And as Jeff Bezos once said, we see the customers as invited guests to a party. And we are the host. So it's our job every day to make every important aspect of the customer experience a little better. आप थोड़ा चुप रहेंगे? He's on his own trip. Happens. That happens in a live show. It's not a Kapil Sharma edited show, so no problems. ET, Brand Equity and Clever Tab have joined forces to bring the most comprehensive and biggest ever program in the customer retention domain, the Big Leap. The campaign is widespread over the next 6 months and will host exclusive interviews, roadshows, digital dialogues, networking events, and informal meetups with India's digital pioneers. Today marks the beginning of our first roadshow in this series of 12 multi-city roadshows that are planned in the upcoming months. Rise with Retention Roadshow, as presented by ET Brand Equity and powered by Clever Tab, will deep dive into the customer journeys and how brands can create customized solutions to retain them. Our social media hashtag, The Big Leap, and hashtag Retain to Gain, catch the live updates on the Twitter handles of ET Brand Equity and Clever Tab. As we move ahead, it is always great to know each other. To ooze more energy in this room, I would like to call upon the one and only Satrajit Sen, Head of Product and Community, ET Brand Equity, for the formal welcome. Can we have a round of applause for Satrajit, please? Sir.
Hello. Yeah, it's okay. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. A very welcome. Good evening, and thanks, Madhukar, for the warm welcome. So Madhukar just did my part, and it's easy for me now to actually introduce and welcome you all to the Big Leap, right? Why we're calling it the Big Leap, and why are we today talking about retention? So, as in life and in business, retention is one of the most important things, right? In life, in relationships, acquisition is one part, but retention is the bigger part. And that's what boils down to business as well, because today the customers are changing, their demands from businesses are changing, and that's why they want more personalized communication, personalized experiences to be served to them from businesses. Today we have seen how traditional businesses used to look at user retention. For them, user retention was only for growth. But today, as we see more and more digital businesses coming into the foray, we see a lot of focus going beyond the growth story and actually talking about how can users stay with you more, how can users spend more time with you, and how can users basically advocate you, be the brand advocate that you're really looking at. User retention has always been the cornerstone for any business, and this year, after the pandemic, as we are all, gathered here, we are seeing more focus on user retention. That's only because that's one of the biggest milestones that a business can actually want from its users. To throw more light on this, I would really want to welcome Tapan here, Tapan from Clever Tab. Before Tapan comes on board, I would really want to thank our partners, Clever Tab here, who have actually helped us to bring this roadshow and bring this campaign to life. So thank you, Clever Tab, for that. And Tapan is obviously, knows more about retention. He lives retention, right? And he's a better person to talk about retention than me. So welcome, Tapan. The floor is yours.
फर्स्ट फ्यू लाइंस फ्रॉम मधुकर. मधुकर, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. जड़ दो चांदी में चाहे सोने में, आईना झूठ बोलता ही नहीं, तो सच तो बोलना पड़ेगा. सो just thanking you, Madhukar, and just for the gathering, Madhukar with his poetry reminded me a couple of lines as well. So one of my favorite lines for the past few years. I'm trying to find something better, but couldn't find so far. So it goes like this: that यदि खरीद सकते तो खरीद ही लेते उन्हें अपनी जान बेचकर. यदि खरीद सकते तो खरीद ही लेते उन्हें अपनी जान बेचकर. पर कुछ लोग कीमत से नहीं किस्मत से मिला करते हैं. So very nicely said. With that, I'll just get to the the discussion part of it. I'll just ask for a clicker. Thank you. It's a tough job for me to introduce the topic amongst my equals, my betters, all of you sitting here. And it also, I was reflecting this whole domain of the mobile internet and marketing. It's kind of now a teenager. Though the mass SMS was there in 2002 as well, but only after 2010, the whole bi-directional thing where you're observing users and it's not just one-side communication, you're observing the journey, became very much a serious affair. And now in 2022, I think so it's kind of becoming a teenager, which is now we're going to see this journey ahead and many, many new customer journeys would be coming. Just a couple of patterns. There are some bar graphs and charts written here, but I talk about what it means. Most of us spend 1/3 of our time, awake time, looking at the phone or interacting with the phone, which is 5 hours. Taking out how much we sleep, etc. 5 hours in a day at least we look at the phone or interact with the phone. We generally unlock the phone 150 times in a day. For Indian, that's how the data is. Generally, and sometimes even between 2 unlocks, there is a 3 minutes gap. And we generally see that it first thing in the morning and last thing in the night, etc. And what are we doing? And there are many journeys actually we're discovering. It's actually our lens to the world. We are finding entertainment, doing transactions, maybe buying insurance, maybe looking for something to buy, searching moments of happiness, that small ting, ting, oh, somebody gave me a like on Facebook, oh, somebody liked my content on LinkedIn. So it's landing so many emotions amongst us. And the question it comes is, if so many people are discovering so many things, then is your app on the retention zone, or are users, churning out of your app? It is very, the whole mathematics is actually driven by the habit rule of 2190. Everybody knows this here. Like if you spend 21 days doing something, you eventually form a habit, and if you do it for 90 days, it's like a habit for life, and then you repeat it. So there's a journey around that. So a lot of times these marketing matrices are built on that. So we measure that, is your application month-on-month visited? Are you able to, retain your user? It's also very, very important because as a trend, and many the panel members, esteemed panel members are sitting here, 90% of users get lost in first 3 months. A lot of campaigns are acquisition campaigns. You burn marketing money to acquire users, and they leave you in 90 days, which is 90% of customer acquisition cost in bonfire. And it's very important to, keep the retention there. Hence, retention is a very, very important priority. Also, if you see most of the business waves which are coming right now, it is total number of customers and how many journeys they can take on your app. For example, without taking names, let's say if you have a food delivery app, can you move the user now from ordering food to ordering groceries? So the LTV immediately goes high. So how many journeys and more journeys you can enable on the app, that defines how much LTV you can drive, lifetime value you can drive from the user. So it's a very, very important metric, and all of us know that. And in order to ensure that you don't, waste the customer acquisition cost, many of these matrices are driven. These are a couple of studies. Also, very much a known fact that if you're able to retain a user, you can drive better profits. I just want to ask a couple of questions from the physical world as well. For example, all of us generally like, let's say, a shaving cream, or let's say a denim. Let's say if you wear a brand of denim, even a number of denim, just taking a name, let's say if somebody's wearing a Levi's and likes to wear a 511, it's very likely that you tend to stick with that denim. And so the lifetime value of the customer is very, very high. So same goes for the profitability as well. If you're able to onboard newer and more journeys, the amount of profit as well as engagement you can do is massive. In digital world, as we all know, that the communication is bidirectional. It's not one way. It's not that you are just looking at a transaction from the customer. You are observing every step of the customer. Abundant cart, what product, profile. And in lot many ways, you're having a conversation with the user. The conversation is about the right offer, right context, right content, right channel. And that's how you maintain top of the mind recall. Most of the apps, like, you know that, like you like an app because you feel that, okay, this app knows me. It could be for OTT. You know, you like the particular platform. It could be for a music platform that, you know, it gives me the best recommendations, etc. So these things make you stick to the app, help you form a habit, and land more and more journeys, you know, in this world through your device. CleverTap also, you know, we are in this domain. What we saw is that the whole marketing, the way it has evolved, it is a combination of 4 aspects. You collect a lot of data, you generate insights, segment the users, and engage the users. On you know, your right-hand side, as you can see, this is how the world generally looks at this. There are 4 set of tools. Data is disparate. You are exporting data. The campaigns cannot be real time. There is a delay. You're not in context. You're not on time, or, you know, not for the right segment. What we've done, we thought of is combining all these 4 things as well as on a single layer of data, so that your reaction time is faster and you're able to engage the users better. With that thought, I just want to, you know, open up this discussion. I have great panel members, you know, joining me on the panel. And I was looking at, and I just call out a couple of things which I was just observing, and I was talking to someone. I was talking to Shashwat, and he was talking to me that, you know, on all his platforms, web and mobile, there are about 200 million plus users. Just a comparison, population of Australia is 24 million. So he's tackling 10 times Australia population. So, and many numbers also came to me. For example, I was talking to Angad, and his users, if I'm not wrong, Angad's about 70 million users, 7 crore. So he's tackling close to 5% of country's population. So it's a massive comparison. So with that, I just want to invite all the panel members, and over to you, Madhur.
Fantastic. I think, as William Shakespeare said, the light of knowledge shines ever brighter than a full 1,000 moons and suns put together. I think आपने कुछ चीज़ बोली ना, तो आज का माहौल भी शायराना होने वाला है. People are going to think we are going to compete with each other for a lot of applause today. Okay, now for the panelists, I would like to now move ahead. The session coming up next will focus on decoding the customer retention strategies. Traditionally, brands have always focused on acquiring new customers in order to scale. The modern growth journey of digital brands does not end at the user acquisition. Join me in welcoming our esteemed panel as they uncover the need to keep users engaged and hooked on to the platforms to unlock true growth. I'd like to first call in upon the CMO of Just Dial, Prasun Kumar. Prasun is a seasoned marketing professional, a brand expert, blogger, technology enthusiast, and entrepreneur at heart. With over 20 years of experience across internet, real estate, retail, telecom, and advertising industries, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Prasun Kumar, CMO, Just Dial. Our next panelist is responsible for the consumer acquisition, consumer lifecycle management, conversions, pricing, and promotions and channel management for the business. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for next panelist, the Chief Growth Officer of OYO, Yatish Jain. A seasoned marketing professional with over 17 years of experience, Rahul leads the marketing, corporate communications, the consumer insights, and customer obsession agenda of the company. Our third panelist is the Senior Vice President and CMO of Max Life Insurance, Rahul Talwar. Our next panelist is the man behind the product enhancements that are driving customer retention for Winzo. He is responsible for ensuring that the acquired users are retained by delivering immaculate experiences to Winzo's users. Ladies and gentlemen, the head of product retention Winzo, Angad Sehdev. I think there should be a deafening applause for all the panelists, please. You put your hands up and let's have the applause going for them. He leads Ghana's brand marketing, user growth, and retention initiatives. With 15 years of experience, he has handled marketing and business roles across leading FMCG and e-commerce brands across brands. Ladies and gentlemen, our next panelist, Shaswat Goswami, the head of marketing Ghana. Can we have a round of applause for him, please? He's just made sure he's rivaling me in every word I speak and speaks very well. Calling upon the SVP, Meta and India, Clever Tab, Tapan Acharya. And last but not the least, the man I've grown fond of by watching that he smiles before I say something. He's always looking at me like an elder brother. People, ladies and gentlemen, the head of product and community, ET Brand Equity, is also the moderator for today's session, Satrajit Sen. Sir. Over to sir.
Thanks. So welcome panelists. First of all, thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this, helping us understand what retention actually is, and where retention stands in each of your businesses. Right? So Madhukar already introduced you all, and you really don't need any introduction. So I'll straight away start with the Q&A. The first of all, to start off, I will go to my brands here, and I'll start from Yatish here, and understand, Yatish, over the years, right, how have you seen your audience and your customers change? And with that change, what are the newer demands that you see from them, especially when it comes to engagement and retention is concerned?
I think over the time, what we have realized is that users want ease and convenience. I think that is all that people want, right? Like with the entire new everything coming up in terms of the internet economy, right? Like I think the ease of usage is something that lies at the heart of every consumer. Now that's something I think is what we are trying to solve for in terms of hospitality. Like anywhere, like ubiquitous, right? Like you want to book a hotel room and you can just book that on 3 clicks. I think that is what we solve for. You have a predictable experience, it's very light on your pocket, and you have a great experience after that, right? So I think that's what user wants. And again, the expectations of users, specifically corporate travelers, again, it's just changed. Like they don't spend like more than 10 hours in a hotel room, that they just come to sleep. So they know that they don't need a fancy lobby. They need a hygienic room, they need a working AC, they need a breakfast, they need a Wi-Fi. So I think the user has become very, very clear that what does the user needs and what is he or she ready to pay for that. And if you are able to match that demand with the supply at right price point, I think that just does it, right? Like that is what I think we have realized over the years. And how can you be more relevant to the user? How are you available? How are you offering something that is very relevant to the use case of the user? and how are you offering that at right price. I think a combination of all three is the key that we've realized.
Thanks, Yatish. I would move to Rahul here. Rahul, so we are talking about, so we have heard from Yatish speak about a new category, right? When it comes to life insurance, it's an old category, right? So how have you seen, your consumers change over the years? That's one. And secondly, what do they expect from you now?
No, thanks, Satyajit, for the question. So I think in the digital economy age, what's important to know for, most of us in the audience, I'm sure, and all of us would have had one life insurance product, that we are fairly a passive category. And thanks to the pandemic, there is more awareness around the category being more in the face and more relevant now. But if you look at the nature of the category, it's not short term, it's a long term category. Typically, it's 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, 40 years if you have a pure term plan. So I think one thing that we have figured out very clearly is that to make the customers understand what have they purchased and why have they purchased. I think it's a very important aspect to keep the customer engaged. And it's said in a lighter vein that onboarding is difficult in any category, equally ours. But retaining the customers for this longer period is even more important. And it's important not only for us as a business, it's for the customer, because end of the day, you're covering the life of the customer. And you're offering something in return, which by the way, the user may not be around to be able to take advantage of. It's the family who takes care of it. That's one. Second, what we have also seen very clearly that now customers, thanks to awareness, because end of the day, a customer of life insurance is also customers of every other category, right? It may be fashion, maybe hospitality, maybe retail. What we have realized that customer here also now demands do it yourself. And again, thanks to the pandemic tailwinds available, a lot of trends we have seen that are do it yourself volume for retention, for renewals, for engagement has gone almost 1.5 times to 2 times. So I think that's a prevalent trend that we are seeing. But it's again, retention for us means long-term trust. If you're able to maintain that and we keep the customer engaged, I think we are heading in the right direction.
Right. Thanks, Rahul. Moving on to you, Shashwat. So, we have seen entertainment, and India is an entertainment, heaven, right? We have seen entertainment change, and, music has been a part of our lives and everybody's lives. Music consumption has changed over the years. Now it is streaming, earlier it was the records and all that, right? In your business, and you're a content category, right? What does retention mean actually? Is acquisition as, our friend here said that, acquisition is bigger and retention is a part of that entire game. So how do you look at it?
Yeah, so actually, in that sense, it's a good segue from what Rahul was mentioning because like he mentioned, the life cycle is fairly long in the case of insurance. I think for Ghana, it's diametrically opposite, right? You're only as good as the last music recommendation you gave somebody, right? So you need to win that battle every day, sometimes twice or thrice a day, because the minute you send a Punjabi song to a Tamilian, you've lost him, right? So I think every industry has their nuances, and I think in the case of content, or more specifically in the case of Ghana, for example, on music, what we feel is engagement is a sort of leading indicator of long-term retention. So if you were able to get a lot of people engaged with meaningful content at the right time, help them discover the right kind of music that they're looking for, they're much more likely to stick on to the app. And again, one of the common points from what Rahul and I think Yatish also spoke about is the onboarding journey, I think, is a critical step because a lot of journeys get made or broken at that point of time. I think one thing, the second part of your question, one thing that has changed over the past few years is, can comment only on music right now, but I think acquisition used to be the prime battle that brands fight in content. Because once you acquired a customer, they were much more likely to stick on to you, be it a food delivery app, or be it a music app, be it a OTT video app. Because there were lesser brands in the market competing for the same consumer. But now, I think that has changed because even if you've acquired the customer, chances are he is with increasing memory sizes on phones, etc., chances are he's got 20 to 30 apps on an average, and chances are therefore he has multiple food delivery apps, multiple transport apps, and therefore it's not just about acquiring and then retaining. It's also, I think, one of the slides that Tapan was showing. A lot of retention ends up becoming about top of mind, because which app is he going to open if he has 3? It's a lot of times the game is about that as well. So yeah, a lot of things are changing, and we're also learning. So it's interesting times ahead.
Right, the problem plenty actually. I'll move on to Prasun sir here. Sir, you really have a problem plenty at your hand, right? So you are a horizontal, player who has several categories. So one just dial consumer can be of different characteristics. So how the retention just gets more complex in that sense. So how do you decipher that?
Well, it's fairly interesting, but let's start with the very basics. I think this nameplate is wrong. Personalization is one of the important retention tools, so let's not get it wrong there. Yes, being a horizontal, it poses different challenges to us, because we are dealing in multitudes of categories, and each category has its own dynamics at play, different ways consumers are engaging with the platform. So that adds to the complexity. Added to that, the fact that being a classified platform, customer, I think, as a word is being used in a very broader sense here. But for us users and the paying customers who are the clients on the platform, both are important from a retention perspective, right? So you search, say for example, the nearest barber shop on Just Dial. You are a user to me, you are a consumer. But the barber is the one who's my customer, because he's paying for displaying his ad at that point of time. So retention also has that dynamics on the platform, where you're looking at both the user as well as the paying client and trying to see how do you apply your strategies over there. The another layer that plays out is we are both a B2B and B2C platform. So the retention strategies and approach for a B2B environment and customers over there is very, very different than how you play it out in the B2C arena. And so a lot of these layers are there when you are a horizontal, and when you're looking at your customer retention strategy, you got to be looking at all of this and trying to figure out what are the basic things you do. But just to answer your question in a very short way, what are the things that have changed that I have noticed over a period of time? There are 4 things that I think fundamentally has changed, and I do summarize that at four kind of S, if you may call it that. The first thing is seriousness. I think across the board, whether these are users or consumers or customers, whether this is in B2B environment or B2C environment, everyone wants to be taken seriously once they are on your platform. And you just cannot afford not to take someone seriously. At times what we do as marketeers, one of the mistakes that we make is also in our excitement or enthusiasm to acquire consumers in millions, we often ignore the part that once the consumer is onboarding, how seriously we are looking at that consumer and how seriously we are studying his or her needs and trying to customize solutions. So I think that seriousness is very important, and I think over a period of time I have seen consumers demanding more and more attention from brands. The second thing I have noticed that has changed is seamlessness. Now more and more consumers are asking for seamless experiences. And whether it's omni-channel strategy or any other integration that comes into play, seamlessness is very, very crucial now. And I, as a user of a particular platform, would want you to understand that I reached out to you 15 days ago on your app, and I had a certain conversation with your chatbot. And I am probably calling you up now to resolve something. I would expect you to know what I discussed last time. And so that entire seamlessness of experience across platforms, across channels is something consumers definitely want, right? Then, they are looking at speed, which is the third S. Whether it's a consumer or a customer, everyone is in a hurry. And if there are issues, grievances, then there's a different dynamics to that. But even outside of that, when I'm on your platform, I would want everything to be delivered to me in a ZIF. I want solutions now, I want customizations now, I want personalization now, I want incentivization now. So everything is now, and that now is a difficult part to manage. And that is kind of forcing a lot of brands like us to also look at technology in a greater way, because that's the only way to deliver this now experience at scale. And the fourth thing that I have seen changing is what I call the fourth S, which is status. I think a lot of consumers, especially in the B2B segment, but also I do see reflection of that in B2C segment as well, maybe for insurance kind of categories as well, where a consumer wants to be treated like a VIP. And when I am talking to you, you better pay attention to me, and you better know that I'm your paying customer or your paying consumer. And I don't care whether from your perspective I'm a VIP consumer or not, but I want that VIP treatment. I want my issues to be resolved. I want myself to be heard. I want my, I want the thing that I want it now, and you got to be delivering that to me. So I think there are some of the changes that I have noticed that have happened over a period of time, and platforms like, multiple platforms, which are helping resolve these challenges that are there. They are also, in a way, fast-tracking this, accentuating this, and at the same point of time, helping brands achieve this.
Sure. Thanks, Prasun sir. I mean, the 4 S's of customer characteristics, right? Thank you for that. Angad, gaming as a category, right? It has really kind of came into the picture, especially when the pandemic struck us and everyone was locked into their homes. People were playing games on devices, on platforms. Most of the acquisition happened that time. I mean, on and off. How do you see, clicking on to the consumers and basically asking them to, making sure that they hold on to your platform, especially when there are the problem of plenty, the Me Too's all around.
Yeah, so I think that's a very, I think it's audible. Yeah. So I think that's a very valid question. I think definitely the pandemic helped with our growth. Retention itself is slightly insulated, because once we have acquired users, they have kind of experienced the platform, and they've already started on the journey of building a habit. So it doesn't fluctuate that much with respect to lockdowns and pandemics, but yes, there is some trickle-down effect, because what we are fighting for is kind of mind space. There are different leisure activities which users have access to once the lockdown gets opened. They can go to watch movies, they can go out shopping, whereas the previous time it would have all been available for online digital entertainment. So we are fighting for a smaller mind share now, so it becomes even more relevant or more important for us to be more personalized and very targeted. There are a lot of different initiatives for it. In a broad way, I would say, of course, more personalized experiences, but I'll give a couple of examples. For example, once the pandemic opens up, or sorry, the lockdowns open up, the times of the day at which people will want to play games, that can change, right? So especially commute time, for instance. So you'd want to reach out to users at that commute times in the morning and the evening, saying that, some game is trending on Windows, why not, come and play right now? Because they're anyway sitting idle, and that's an avenue in which they cannot explore multiple other kind of entertainment modes. For example, going for a movie, you cannot just do that while on a metro. So those kind of personalizations and targeting is happening. On the product lever side as well, there are ways to, just to take a step back, the intent to play games has not gone away. It's just that we are competing with other. Yes. So you sometimes need to create hooks on the platform for people to realize that intent and to kind of act on it. So earlier, if people were coming on the app on their own and trying to play games, now what we would do is we'll try to create kind of special kind of tournaments or contests running at a particular point of time and create hype around it. So that people feel that there is an extra urge and a push that, there's something special happening. I want to go and try it out right now. There are other product innovations happening. For example, during this COVID period, we also launched a feature called as streaks, right? So for example, if you come on the app on the first day you've been acquired, we auto-enroll you into a streak, right? And the next day, we send a reminder to the user that you have completed 1 day of your streak. There are 2 more days to go. As soon as you complete the streak, you will get an extra reward. So now there is an extra incentive that, I've already done 1/3. I've already invested. There is some kind of, buy-in already. Why not just do these couple of more activities as well. So these kind of innovations keep happening on the product side. Of course, on the retargeting and the notification side as well, you do better targeting, and overall personalization and real-time engagement is an overarching kind of theme for any retention strategy. But yeah, these were some of the things which you work on.
Sure. Thanks, Angad. So, audiences, I'll move to Tapan here, but Tapan, we have heard actually, across the panel, across categories, how they look into retention and how they actually look into winning the customer over for, the customer lifetime that you mentioned. You have been closely working with a lot of brands across categories and helping them win the retention journey, right? How do you see, in your experience of working with them closely, how do you see them, how do you see the approach towards retention change from a brand owner's perspective?
Sure, I'll try and answer that question later, but before than that, I was actually enjoying the comments and the points spoke by the panel members, and I just want to try and demystify some of them. And each word is worth its weight in gold. For example, when Yatish said, okay, we have so many customers, we have a segment, do they need a lobby? They are, working professionals, they need some. He's talking deep segmentation. And just on his scale, if I may just compare, Yatish, on the 31st night, 31st December night, which went by, Oyo, 1 million customers of Oyo tried to book a room, and they booked 500,000 rooms on Oyo. The total number of flyers in India before pandemic is 350 million flyers a day. We're talking about 1 million flyers, 350 million flyers a year. We're talking about 1 million flyers a day. So that's the kind of scale he's tackling for 31st December. And now on top of it, he's doing segmentation. He's doing need analysis that, what do they need? There would be families as well. There would be bachelors there. So he's talking deep segmentation. Well, Rahul, the way he talked about onboarding, he also went, the moments at which this is very, very important, the retention aspects where it could be missing a renewal and it could be catastrophic at a moment of finality. And his interjunction with the physical world and the way he's quickly able to onboard a customer, these are, so Rahul, just speaking on your behalf, these are all words weight in gold. And I was just, seeing the layers of what he was talking about. The way, the way Shashwat just said that, okay, you're as good as your last song. And I was imagining, somebody trying to go to a gym, or he's in the moment, his context is a gym, and he possibly gets a classical music kind of a song recommendation to listen to. And possibly that could go totally wrong against the platform. So, and I was just trying to see the layers. And when I was listening to Prasoon and what was going in my mind, and just to put his scale, he has about 150 million plus unique users a quarter. India's taxpayer is 82.2 million people pay taxes in India. So twice the amount of worry from a number standpoint is what he's doing. An amazing scale I was able to see, and thank you very much. And sorry for bogging you down with the numbers. I was just seeing the layers of the conversations they had, and when Angad was talking about how in the right context, right time of the day, and how it is with their shift of habit, you're able to shift with them. Amazing. So, and this, the reason I also said this is, it's, in my mind, the problem is hyper-personalization at scale. It's not a customer, because the customers always feel that I am a customer. But for the company, it could be 100 million customers. And then all the aggregate matrices of a marketer is aggregate matrices. What is the promo adoption rate? What was the response to the promo? While from a customer standpoint, what have you given to me? So it's a very, very, dichotomy for the company as well as. So the approach that I generally see, just to answer the question, is it's not possible to do all this manually or Excel sheets. It has to be very, very dynamic, very, very automated, personalized, automated, happening real time. let's say in a game, and there are things like live ops, where somebody's playing a game and okay, in order to defend yourself, buy a shield. And you have to have a shield promo like that. As the way Anga talked about, there's a customer journey map. That, okay, this is what you've done today, you've done already 33% is over, and you have that habit hookers. So all these things play a lot, but it's a lot about automation at scale and still be able to treat it in a very segmented fashion. That's how I see. Sorry for the long answer, but I was just amazed by the layers.
Thanks.
I would actually really love if Rahul, Yatish, you could talk a little bit more detail, some personalized examples, some stories about it.
On that personalized note, I was just coming to, Yatish, if you can share some stories about, as Tapan mentioned, how personalization actually helped you, win the retention journey and, win the customers.
No, I think a very valid point that in terms of personalization, and I call it contextualization more than personal, because for us, while we can say that travel is not like a frequent use case, but if you are contextual enough, you can make it a frequent use case. How do we look at that is there is one user might have one use case for a long period of time, but he or she might have multiple use cases in recent times. So you look at a user, if a user might be a corporate traveler, at the same time the user can be a family traveler. Same time a user can be can travel or come up with his friends to party, right? So we have multiple use cases. It's about how do you identify what is the context for that user, and then you personalize your offering to that. Right, like are you offering the user a family room or are you offering a corporate room? So I think that is something that we've been able to do. How do we identify use case for a user, segment that and offer that particular offering to the user at the right time? So I think that's worked out really well. Apart from that, I would say, as I mentioned again, contextualization that worked out very well during the pandemic as well. What kept us going during pandemic was that how do you remain relevant? Like for example, as an organization, we tried not get into the trap of, say, for example, trying something which is away from the business, because we are not that business. We are a business which is offering rooms to the people. Now, how do you remain relevant is what we tried and solved there. So, for example, quarantine became a major use case during the pandemic, that how people wanted to quarantine themselves from their families because they felt that they had infection. We were just able to provide them quarantine rooms in their locality and just offer that. So again, remaining contextual as a business and then providing that service to the user. I think that became very important. And then of course, applying multiple personalization layers, which is the particular kind of hotel that a user likes, right? What is the kind of locality that a user like? What is the kind of payment mode that a user like? I think that they are very regular personalization layers, which I think most of the businesses apply. But I think this is something that worked out really well. I'll give a very specific example. This is less personalization to a user, but to the context of the period. For example, there were two programs that we ran during pandemic, which is sanitize before your eyes and vaccinate, where basically you're trying to give confidence to the user that the hotel that you will go will sanitize it in front of your eyes. I think that just worked wonderfully well in terms of recovering back and instilling that confidence. So yeah, I think
That's brilliant. Thanks. Shashwat, I'll come to you here. Talking about personalization here, right? How do you ensure, right, when it comes to personalization, because you have, as you mentioned, a Punjabi song to a Tamil user is a catastrophe to be, unfolded, right? So how do you maintain that? How do you maintain that personalization levels?
A lot of tools available in the market today, like Clever Tap, do allow for personalized journeys to be mapped. Let's say rules to be set, and because of which all of these problems that I spoke about don't necessarily become day-to-day problems to tackle, because you can set a rule which says, okay, somebody who's heard at least 3 Tamil songs is to be considered a Tamil user, so, or 5 maybe, if because the lines are blurring on music also now. You see a lot of Telugu movies doing well, and then we start getting the opposite feedback that you're not recommending popular Telugu songs to the users in the north. And I think going back to what Yatin was saying, therefore it becomes important. One is segmentation, but then you need to overlay it with what is contextual, what is trending, and sometimes you might give a Korean song, for example, to a lot of English users because that's what is trending and that's what probably will be a pleasant discovery for that audience. So, that's why I said, I mean, we are also figuring it out. I think nobody has all the answers on this, but I think it's becoming easier as more and more data is available, more and more functionalities get unlocked at at a product level, at a tool level. The two kind of come together. The more signals that you pass to a tool like Clever Tap, the more personalization is possible, the more contextual you can get. Like, for example, going back to the use case Yatish was talking about, let's say vacation travel became quarantine travel for him. For us, it changed the time bands when content was getting consumed, because the morning and evening commutes stopped. And therefore, all the learnings that, okay, we need to send devotional songs at 6 a.m. probably, and the trending playlists at 9 a.m. went out of the window because people were at home. People would, a lot of chopping and changing of schedules became possible with work from home. So things are evolving, and I think that's why I said every day is a new day, and I don't think we have any set solutions on this. But yeah, it has to be played by ear, actually.
Right. We are learning every day here. Rahul, would be keen to have some learning from you, right? In the insurance category, right? How do you ensure engagement when there are? You mentioned about your category of users, right? And that's where personalization comes into play. But how do you ensure that they stick onto you, especially when there is a the Me Too case there? I mean, there are so many Me Toos there.
So I think fundamentally, I think I'll make 3 points. First, on a lighter note, I think there is a hidden jewel sitting in the word customer, which we've missed all this while, and I always keep looking at it and reminding myself, it captures the essence of us to me. You drop the C from the first letter and drop the R, it captures us to me, which says, don't treat me like an us, treat me like a me. So I think that's the first thing that sticks to my mind. And because Punjabi की बात हो रही थी और हिंदी की बात हो रही थी, एक उसमें word है छुपा हुआ कष्ट, कि मेरा कष्ट कम कर दो. I think, but I think at MaxLive what we end up doing is 3 things. On a serious note now, I think one, because we are a category which is a legacy category, and we have been a category which is consumed as data has evolved, as data capture has evolved. I think one of the most important ways of personalization is data automation and new data capturing at every touch point possible. I think that just ensures that at every subsequent touch point or every relationship call that's happening, you're able to have that enriched conversation. So that's one. Second, getting inspired by a lot of service models. What we're also doing, we are talking about this entire thing around a service relationship manager at MaxLife, whose primarily job is to not intercept the customer at the point of a transaction, but to build that relationship, but to be able to say that for under the do-it-yourself umbrella and under a one call away, I am that one person, because we know we are a passive category and we have to be right there at the moment of truth. And why renewals is important or why retention is important. And I think the pandemic taught us, and we went through a lot of live cases. We pushed a particular user into renewals. We ensured that irrespective of the pandemic, and quite a few of our users from different stratas had some liquidity issues. And the first go-to piece was, can I release some liquidity from my insurance? But when we pushed the customers to hold on to, and when that particular family had an eventuality, and you went back as a business with that claimant's check, I think is when you realize that you have bought over to the trust of not only that family, but of that moment. And I think one of the big tools that we use functionally, and if all of us would have gone through Policy Bazaar as an aggregator, we would have realized that there's this metric called claims paid ratio. That's nothing but to keep telling back to the user from a retention frame as well as from an onboarding frame, that in the moment of truth, when you would need, there would be brand or there would be the business that's going to be there. And we use that tool very aggressively. So yeah, so that's the piece for me. But again, yeah, we keep reminding ourselves, hyper-personalization by enriching data is something that we keep doing day in, day out.
Great anecdote. Thanks, Rahul. Prasansa, over to you. So, where do you see personalization happening at that level when it concerns Just Dial customers?
Well, not very different from what Yatish or Shashwat, etc. have spoken. The rules of the game are similar. I would want to just give a very interesting example. Sometimes you also have to think out of the box when you're trying to retain a customer or trying to retain customers at scale. So when the pandemic had hit, because a lot of shifts in our way of looking at retention also happened during that period because of behavioral changes, because circumstantial changes, and contextually things were very, very different. So when pandemic had hit, I'm giving you example of my previous assignment, which was at Magic Bricks, which is a real estate portal. And you would assume that when pandemic hit, real estate was one of the last categories that would be there on your mind to do, anything with. So we were actually facing existential crisis. As to, all of a sudden you see millions of consumers coming on your platform, looking for real estate investments, and them drying up overnight, living with nothing, and nobody was in a mood to really invest or look at. So that forced us to really go a little deeper and think what to do. You had these millions of consumers coming to you on the platform. How do you bring them back? What do you do during that period? Right, and so we started, figuring out the pain points. We started seeing, okay, fine, what is it? We went, he was talking about the consumer journey as such and mapping the consumer journey. We really did that very extensively, and we came out with a very, very. It was not a textbook solution. So the solution that we found out was in content. And we said, can we really produce content that helps consumer at this point of time, because the consumer is sitting at home and consuming all kinds of content. Now, can we really develop and seed content which is going to hook the consumer onto the platform and really add value at the same point of time to his or her journey that he or she wanted to have. So we reached out to consumers. There was a bit of personalization involved over there, looking at what kind of houses, etc. you were searching for, what time, what budget, etc. and all those kind of things. And we had converted our YouTube platform on as a content aggregator of sorts called MBTV. And we started producing a lot of content which was around project reviews, which was around property reviews, comparisons, flat reviews, and so on and so forth. Because we did realize that real estate was a category where there was a lot of research that was involved that consumers used to do before. It's a long gestation category again. Consumers are typically with you 6 to 9 months before they take a decision and kind of make a purchase. So we started developing very, very interesting content and started seeding it to consumers, right? And that did saw close to about 60 to 65% consumers coming back onto the platform and starting to consume those kind of content. So we said, hey, why don't you utilize this time to prepare yourself better? You may not want to invest now. You may want to invest, sometimes in future. But since you were extremely interested and whenever the need arises, would you want to be a little better prepared for taking the decision that you wish to take? So that was I think very out of box, kind of a solution that we thought to really retain consumer at that point of time. So these are sometimes, Googlies do come your way, and you got to be really looking at how do you, solve such situations. So yeah, this is one of the examples. Coming back to the point that we're talking about at Just Dial, personalization, again, I said, because we operate with multiple layers. So, we have multiple ways to look at personalization as well. And we also see that, Just Dial is a down funnel search engine. Google is at the top end of the funnel where you're searching almost anything and everything in the world. You come to search for something on Just Dial when you are virtually close to making a decision, and you want to really reach out to the concerned party to really make a decision. And so at that level, we also figured out that there are a lot of consumers who were not really keen about personalization. They were not responding to, they just wanted their need to be fulfilled, and that's about it. So it was really about getting back to segmentation, to really look at, how do you look at different buckets of consumers, and which consumers would respond to personalization more, and which would not respond to personalization. And through our own learning, it was a bit of a trial and error, as Shashwat was saying, you don't have all the answers all the time. So it was a bit of a trial and error, and so that process is kind of an ongoing process. And you keep doing that, you keep figuring out, you keep testing things, you keep figuring out what is working, what is not working, what can be scaled. But yes, I mean, there are, over a period of time, you do understand that there are some underlying threads, there are some common traits that you're looking at, there are, some generalizations that you can make and take things forward. So these are some of the things that you do generally to really drive personalization.
Right. Empowering the consumer has always worked for any business, and that's what we can learn from your Magic Bricks example. Angad, over to you, personalization in the gaming category. Want to throw some anecdotes over there, some experiences and examples that you can share?
Yeah, sure. I think when you speak about retention, I think there was one slide which said that 90% people drop off after the first month or 30 days. I think the highest drop actually happens after the first day itself. It's not at a month level. If you're not able to retain users for the next day, at least in my domain, half the users could be potentially lost. So the challenge over there is that's a very critical time period when the user has come for the first time. That's the time when the user is giving most attention to the app because he's exploring the app. And the challenge for the product or business is that we don't have enough data points at that point of time. It's easier to do personalization for a user who has been on the app for some time. So now you have to be really reactive. Very quick hyper personalization, as was mentioned. We need to do that. So if the user has kind of seen an ad and then come onto a platform, we contextualize the app according to that. If he has seen a game, let's say a Fruit Samurai game, so when he comes on the homepage, he should be able to discover those games very easily. Ours is a vernacular apps, right? So we can discover, we know which location the user is from, and we can kind of prod the user to select the language of his choice. It will not make it very difficult for him to find his own language. So these kind of small personalization starts happening from the day of onboarding itself. And then as and when we get more data points on the user, we kind of create more curated and personalized experiences. Because I think what drives retention is that basically three things. One is a seamless UI UX. People want a one-tap touch sign up. People want one-tap withdrawals, one-tap add cash. Everything has to be at one click, one-click game entry. So that's on the UX side. People want, on the personalization side, they want a personalized experience. They want an experience where they feel valued. So personalization starts happening real time at the start itself, but over a longer term duration, you have loyalty programs so that an older user also feels more valued, that they're getting some special benefits out of the platform. And the third thing, which I think is critical for a digital app, is that people don't want a spammy or a cluttered experience, especially when it comes to notifications, because as was mentioned, there are like 20, 30 odd apps on the phone, if not more, right? And you're constantly bombarded with notifications. So what people will react to those notifications which they know are relevant for them. And if you spam too much, they might actually end up just blocking all notifications, which kills off one avenue of reactivating a user. So being very specific, targeted, and relevant communications to the user from day zero and in the habit forming stage itself, I think that also helps build trust on the platform, and it also makes any retargeting or a retention campaign later easier for us. So you need to kind of hold off on a little bit on mass campaigns. It's always a constant tussle sometimes between different divisions of the company, but keeping the customer interest in mind, there has to be a kind of a cap. On the notification side, personalization happens at multiple levels, right? What time of the day the user wants to be reached out to. Not an example at Winzo, but at Flipkart, we also had we also figured out what is the right, I've worked at Flipkart previously. So we used to figure out what is the kind of language people like in the notifications. Some people like emojis, some people like a more formal language, and they react better to it. So personalization can happen at a very granular, at a very minute level, and also at a very broader level as well. But it all kind of leads to a better experience and a higher retention the longer.
Right, thanks. We can definitely see some common threads here, right? Language, time of the day, so it just says that though the categories are diverse, customers and their characteristics are still the same. Uh, Tapan, in your Clever Tips experience, of working globally, right? And you are a global brand which is working with so many partners across the globe. Is there anything that, the Indian diaspora, Indian brand owners can look into when it is concerned to retention especially?
Sure. Briefly, I'll talk about personalization. In one of my lives, I was taking care of e-commerce. And personalization is everything actually. मतलब मैं discounted clothes नहीं पहनता हूँ. यदि आपने मुझे discounted clothes का offer दिखा, I don't like your app. I like collared t-shirts. Somebody is a value buyer. End of season sale, EOSS में 10 शर्ट खरीदना है 6 महीने की छुट्टी. So, and it was completely, and there are newer, workforce which is coming. So there was, and they start buying really good products, but maybe in smaller quantities. Could be for beauty categories. So there was a segment name for this. So there was like value buyers, fence sitters, or people who like discounted products, people who like to try new things in beauty. So, but smaller package, they were called beauty queens. So all these things, were very, very specific. And personalization was everything actually. That how you are personalized to me, how much you know me. एक चीज जो देने के लिए किसी के पास नहीं है वो है टाइम. कैन एनीबडी टेल मी सारे एसएमएस किसी ने पढ़े हैं अपने फोन में अभी यहाँ पे? कोई नहीं पढ़ता. 1000 एसएमएस पढ़े हुए हैं. एवरीबडी सेज 1 point is equal to 1 rupee, please buy from here. किसको पढ़ी है? How relevant you are to me in what context? What time of the day? And if you are relevant to me, I love you. If you are not relevant to me, हटाओ इसको. So it's very, very important. And the challenge is for all the people sitting on the other side of the fence, and I'm repeating this point, sorry for that. All matrices they are a segment. And you have to segment it so fine, so proper that you are relevant to the entire scale. I was talking to one of my international clients and we were looking at their dashboard. Their app was opened in the last few days, in a week or couple of weeks, 100 million times. They were running 30,000 campaigns at the same time. It's a super app. And they had to be relevant. So they, in fact, the whole customer journey map had built into journeys. Who are the people who have rejected these promos 10 times and this is their favorite method of payment? A campaign for them. And for the user it is relevant because campaign adoption rate was up the roof. So here what I see was personalization is everything. Context, my time of the day, an RFM analysis. That have I recently bought, how frequently I buy, what is my monetary value, is everything. And globally this is very, very important. We ourselves send 1 trillion notifications every month, more than 1 trillion notifications. So it is a massive scale, and we see that people who are more personalized, they are very, very relevant. Those who are not, facing a challenge.
Sure, thanks. Before we open the floor for questions, I would really want to do a quick fire round with all my panelists here. Maybe your take, a one-word answer to really creating a winning customer engagement strategy, and how do brands solve that? So really quick fire thing. Start with Yatish here.
Remain contextual and relevant.
Great. Over to you, Rahul.
Empathy.
Nice.
I think topicality is the one word I'd say, because it kind of marries the verticalness of segments and the horizontalness of, let's say, context that Yatin was talking about, right? Like in our case, same guy might be listening to devotional music early morning and party music late night. So, the verticals and horizontals need to start fusing together. That's why I'm sort of going with topicality, because it marries both.
Deliver what you promised. I think, as brands, consumers mostly expect to be, to have a seamless experience of what I bought into is what I'm getting. And as long as you've delivered that seamlessly to consumer, I think half the battle is won.
That stresses on the point of seriousness that you mentioned earlier. Great. Angad, your take.
I would say leveraging data, not just for identifying the initiatives which should be taken and what new hooks needs to be built, but also for measuring what you're doing. So you might try multiple things, and things might work for some segment, something might not work for another segment. Having a very good and monitoring system and kind of feedback kind of pipeline to figure out what is actually the best thing to be sent to a particular user segment at a particular point of time. It's all a game of data, I think.
Tapan, your call.
Actually, it's hyper personalization at scale, at the entire customer journey map. Do a customer journey map and be hyper personalized at scale for everyone.
Great, thanks. Panelists, thank you so much, for your anecdotes. These 6, keywords for creating a great customer experience is something that every brand should, adhere to. On that note, I would really want to thank all my panelists here. Thank you so much for your anecdotes on retention. I really hope that, all our audiences here are going back with a lot of takeaways and finding the right meaning of the word retention. Thank you so much. Thank you, panelists.